Well, hello and welcome to Leadership Pathway and the first Thursday webinar, whether you're watching it on a Thursday and the first Thursday of the month or in the future off of YouTube. Welcome. I'm Dave Miller. I'm the co-founder of Leadership Pathway, which mission is to help local church leaders find, support, and hang on to young leaders. And we do that through helping them architect a custom residency program for their organization and then walk with them for a two-year time frame and longer after that. It's my deep privilege and honor to welcome the other co-founder, Kristin Miller, to the first Thursday webinar. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
This is, for those of you that don't know, we sleep together. I mean, we're married.
Yes.
I made a joke once at in a very public way about sleeping with the co-founder, and later learned, like hours later, someone was just appalled. And but we're married. We've been married a little bit. She's raised a couple of young millennials. And so anyway, welcome to the program. Welcome to the first Thursday webinar. Before we start, I always want to give a shout out to Norton Creative, Jonathan Norton in Denver, who takes care of Leadership Pathway. And I'm going to drop his link in the chat window and in the show notes on YouTube. The things that look bad, I did on our website and our MailChimp, and the things that look great and make sense, he did. And so huge. This would not be possible without Norton Creative. Okay, Kristin, welcome.
Thanks.
We're doing seven straight sessions on the 7 must-have ingredients of leadership development for Gen Z. And this is a chapter, I think it's chapter number 3 of the book that I can't hold up right now because I don't have a copy yet, but any day, between now and Christmas, we're going to have a book called Who's the Next You? And it's a call for 1,000 new churches to take up the call of launching a residency. This is chapter 3. You can put your name on I'm sure there'll be a wait list for this book, right? That's what I'm told.
Yeah.
You can put your name. I'll drop that link in the chat window. There's the link to get your name on the wait list or whatever that is. What is that? That's a list we're going to let know when the books are sitting in the den of our very small home. Okay, we talk about 7 things, Kristin.
Mm-hmm.
Must have for leadership development for Gen Z. Before we do that, though, I didn't tell you this. I don't know if you've ever even watched these webinars before, but I love asking the question, what were you doing between the ages of 18 to 25? In just a couple of minutes, what made Kristin?
That's good. Well,
ask it.
Between 18 to 25. Well, some of that hits my college years. I did go to a Bible college. I traveled for my school almost every year I was there. So I was in all kinds of settings with great leaders at church camps and churches, almost excessively so, but I was meeting people all the time, networking constantly. Didn't know that was going to be a thing, but it was. And meanwhile, I was serving at local churches while I was at school. And then after school, it was about, I think I had met you at a church camp, one of those glorious camps. We got married and stepped right into ministry early on in our 20s. And then I also became a mom very quickly. In the first 2 years of marriage, we ended up with 2 kids. And yes, that sounds sketchy, but it's not. It was all legit. We had a honeymoon baby, and then second baby came a month early.
I don't know why you feel the need to, when you tell your story, you always have to throw that in.
Well, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I became a mom quickly. And, that kind of changed my course. I had planned to wait many years later, and yet the Lord blessed miraculously, and yet I was still involved in doing ministry all along the way. But it grew me up, and I had some great people about 10 years ahead of me that supported me not only in ministry, but also as a wife and mom, and kind of gave me a good role model to follow.
Fantastic. You were around from day one, really before day one, obviously, but You started full-time leadership path. You were on staff at a church, left that to do leadership pathway full-time. When was that? What year was that?
2019, I believe.
19.
Yeah.
So in your adult life, you've been a mom, you've been a high-level mega church volunteer leader.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked retail downstairs in a building we lived in once in Chicago. You were an admissions director
for 4 years.
You were also a leader at a church, a couple different churches on church staff.
Mm-hmm. Executive level, yeah.
You're an Enneagram certified, whatever. You're a college graduate. You're certified in that other one. I can't remember. PM.
ProStan, PDP.
Yeah, certified. You have a library card. Of all of those things of all of the things you've been through, what if you were reaching in, if those are like the 6 or 7 things and you had to reach for one, the experience of one, which one of those do you reach for when you're coaching?
Oh, wow. Seems like I bring up more parallels to parenting, to be honest. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the college degree, the Enneagram certification, the PDP. Sorry, the creators of PDP. You poured your life into that, and I can't remember what it's called. PDP, executive leader at a church, high-level volunteer leader at a mega. Of all of those experiences, parenting. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Because I know one thing you and your Kristin coaches and then leads all of the coaches that coach a little bit at Leadership Pathway. One thing that they say over and over, I feel like I'm parenting when they're going through residency. Why do you think that is? Some of them aren't even parents. And they say, I feel like I'm parenting. Yeah. So I guess they're thinking about their own parents or what it might be like. They don't even know. But why would you say people compare this to parenting?
Well, it's a little more invested than just a boss, direct report, team member relationship. You have to care a little bit deeper. You have to, not that you don't care about other people, it's not that, but you have to care when they really get on your nerves and you don't like them. Yeah. It's a commitment. And I think when people understand that this person is a value to the team, and yet in the moment, they're not quite there yet. And so you're not benefiting from them early on like you would someone that you would hire that's already got some experience in the field.
Sure.
So it feels like that. It feels like parenting.
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 3 of the New York Times bestseller, Who's the Next You by Leadership Pathway. Chapter 3, 7 must-have ingredients. Name them. There's like 2 subsets. I don't know what to call them, but there's 3, and then there are 4 that the church brings to it, I think. But what are the 7 must-have ingredients? There's education, spiritual formation, soft skill or leadership development, kind of that emotional intelligence. Are you looking at notes? I'm not. I'm actually surprised you asked me. So I know. I love it. It's like walking the halls and going, hey, what are your 4 values? And the senior pastors are like, they all start with W, but I can't. Yeah, you probably could see sweat running down my forehead. Gosh. Okay, those are the 3 sort of like, I don't know what to call that. The 3 internal ones, maybe. Yeah. And then there's 4 things. I think in the early days of Leadership Pathway, we camped on those 3. There's 3 rails. We call them 3 rails, actually. And then the third rail was this idea of soft skills. And I keep them right. All of our coaching material comes with a QR code with a bunch of resources, but one for the resident, one for the coach. In fact, I keep my coach's version handy because most of our coaching deals on those things that are not included in education and are not included in spiritual formation. I got mine too. Yeah. All right. Okay. So then there's 4 more. Yes. The other 4, best practices of ministry. Yep. A good mental wellness plan. Yep.
developmental conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and ownership.
Ownership, which brings us, nice setup, brings us to the topic for today on ownership. There are probably 1,000 things we could say are really needed. And there probably are 1,000 things, honestly. We could pick out any. But why over time has this one emerged? And these 7, the 3 that we started with, but then these other 4 that continue to come to the forefront. Why is ownership one of them?
Well, I think often when we are working with churches and they're working with their residents, there are times when we wonder, like, the ebb and flow of the process. When things break or when people want to give up, we're looking at, like, what is the component that we would point to? Why have we come to this point where people want to quit, whether it's the resident or the church? And we would say it's this ownership piece where we believe that a resident's development rises and falls on the ability of the coach or the leader to coach. And doesn't mean that the resident, the new person, the green person in ministry shouldn't own their own development, but it also does mean both and that the leader needs to own that for a resident. And so typically the lack of ownership, the lack of going all in is where we see things falter and stutter.
It strikes me, I see things happen with clients, churches that we're working with and others, and I see things happen with residents. And it reminds me that what they're doing is very hard. It reminds me of the years that I spent in ministry, right? It just strikes me that church leaders, in the great majority of us, except there's a few that work at the largest 50 in America, but the rest of us on planet Earth, we are hired because we can do stuff. We can do things. We get things done. Along the way, we give some lip service to making disciples who create disciples. We give some lip service to all sorts of things. But really, why did any of us get that role? It's because we get stuff done. And then, like great humans do, they put too much in their calendar, right? They're trying to find efficiencies. Everything in AI world right now is about how can you find efficiencies and work smarter. And then you hand that person a resident or an intern, and they don't know what to do with them. In essence, they don't know how to own it.
Yeah.
Give me the first 2 or 3 just fundamental things that they have to do in order to position themselves to own it at the level that they're going to have to own it.
Well, one thing is to kind of create a plan, knowing that it's always going to evolve. So it doesn't have to be finished. It just needs to be thought through or beginning in process of what the next year, the next 2 years should look like. And one of the things that we like to do is just to try to work backwards. So, like, what does it look like to be the next you? What are the things that you're capably able to get done and do well? And what do you want your residents to be able to do likewise? And then how do you teach them and give them opportunity, starting with becoming familiar with your team, having coffees, being curious, observing, helping, the typical I do, you watch, I do, you help, you do, I help and watch. And then, suddenly you're starting to share it with someone else. So beginning that process of a plan, knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's always going to evolve. Everything you've ever done in ministry changes year to year on some level. So just give yourself grace, but just start thinking about what would you have them do? Probably even before that, it's about creating space to get to know someone. So maybe you've had an interview with someone who's going to come in onto your team. Maybe they've been serving in your ministry, but now you're going to have them elevate to this next level. And it's about what we would call preboarding, which is just an engagement that lets them know, hey, we're really excited to have you here. you're making great efforts to set them up for success, knowing the community, maybe knowing a different community if they've grown up around locally, getting to know adults that maybe they haven't encountered as much. So doing this pre-boarding phase to let them know we're excited to have you join us. And then once they're there, ensure like the red carpet is rolled out. This is one of those things that I see gets missed. And it's kind of like that idea that a first impression that goes wrong is hard to come back to. And so, how you approach and welcome someone early on, helping them not only learn, here's how we use our database and the proper use of Planning Center and Slack, but more like, here's our team. I want you to get to know them. If
they can't leave any. You're making a case. They can't leave anything to chance.
That's right.
Which implies ownership.
Yeah.
Now, my pitch back would be, most of us that work at churches, we get those roles because we interview well. Eventually, we have some work history they can look at, but really, we interview well. We interview well because of who we are. In some instances, and most churches from 100 to a few thousand run on vision, mission, the whole Christian. If you think about the entire Christian ideal, Judeo-Christian philosophy is that we're going to change someday. Jesus is coming. Heaven is in it's all about what's out the windshield and where we're going, from the children of Israel to you and me today. Saul becomes Paul. We meet axe murderers and we think, well, they'll make a great kids pastor and they'll change. And we get these jobs because we can talk our way into things and out of things because we're vision people. My sense is I can own anything once or twice. But let's get down into the ownership, like own this like a good coach. That's why one of the reasons you use the term coach.
Yeah.
You watch a coach, they don't just huddle the team up, pray about it, and whatever you all think, it's drills, it's repetition, it's these things. And that coach owns the success and fail of that team, right? We see it. We're so obsessed with athletics and we can see it. We just don't bring that over into our world. My sense is we can own things once. We love to start. We love to even see it done a couple of times, maybe hand it off to someone with very little instruction.
It's true.
From experience.
Yeah.
How do you speak into that? Because again, normally leadership pathway is dealing with youth pastors, kids, worship, production, these things that build teams and lead people. How do you insert into that world beyond the second or third month? What do you see happening? The ones that do that well.
Well, the ones that do that well, really, it's about them not giving up. We try to say like the first 90 days, we want a resident to not quit, but likewise, a leader shouldn't quit, a coach, a supervisor. And so first 90 days typically is a honeymoon phase. Everyone's, experiencing the grins and giggles, or we're just so excited to have this person of great charm and talent. But no matter what, the honeymoon phase does go away and reality sinks in. And so the really good ones don't give up. They persevere unyieldingly to the mission. And the mission is helping this person become the next you. And it's not about just being a clone. It's not that, because everyone brings uniqueness and variety and different gifts. But it's about helping them thrive and be able to manage the things that you're able to do and think and dream while you're gleaning some great suggestions and ideas and abilities that this person has, and likewise you're able to share that with this resident. One of the things, like with ownership, I think that if we break it down, most of us were not formally developed. We might have had someone who took us under their wing, or someone we looked up to and said, hey, would you mentor me? Or maybe it was way more casual than that. So this is that plus a lot more. It's amped up typically. And so this is where it feels foreign to people. But it's kind of one of those things, if we could examine back to when we started in ministry and thought through, like, what do we wish we could have had? What do we think, like, we've learned along the way that it would be helpful if we could help someone start a little healthier and not have to barely keep their head above water, treading and hoping that they'll make it? How can we help them start swimming sooner and well? And I think thinking in those terms helps us offer something better than maybe we were handed, and not be bitter about that.
Yeah, it's good. One of the things when it's done well, it's about when it's done well. And one of the things I've picked up, I've seen, I've heard you say it, and I've seen it written, is running towards the smoke. What is implied in that cliche? Did we come up with that? Should we trademark that? Probably not. Anyway, what's implied running towards the smoke? Talk about that metaphor and what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, often there are little signs that we need to pay attention to. Maybe even more so, we need to keep our radar up from the very beginning, before they even arrive as a resident. What are the potentials that they might struggle? So watch for that. Often we can even look for personality types and say, well, I'll bet they might struggle with these specific soft skills, not because they're inept, but because we all have areas where we struggle, and this is probably the plan. But when we start to see some things, mental wellness was one of those 7 ingredients. When we start to see things that might indicate a lack of sleep, or perhaps just not showing up on time, meeting deadlines, not blame shifting, some things that might seem little in the moment, we must run to it, because those little things stack if we continue to push it aside thinking, well, they're getting the job done, so I don't think we need to make this a big deal. Let's just move forward. No, rather, we need to run to the smoke.
Right.
Maybe even before we see it, we smell it, or we sense it.
Good.
And so, attend to that before it becomes something big.
I want to talk about reading the room, but before we do, I remember a moment. I mean, one of my early childhood memories, I'm with my dad, and I'm probably standing up in the front seat of the pickup truck, because that's what we did back when I was a kid. And he shot across a intersection, slammed the truck into park, at least in the movie I've created about this. Jumped out, ran up, looked over into a backyard of a home. And he came back and he said, oh, they're barbecuing. Smoke was coming up. And my dad was running over there to see, is everything okay? Or does he have to hop the fence and pull the kids out and make the 5 o'clock news? And when I think of running to the smoke, it's about verifying. Are we good or are we not good? And one of Kristin's unfair advantages, her 40 clients a month or whatever insane number, she does more in a month than you look at a great organization with a leadership development full-time person who does coaching and who does internships. And she does more in a month. She does as much in a month as that person probably does in a year. And so that repetition now, since 2019, you said, I've seen so many play out a different way. Paige, who does all of our recruiting and our candidate relations, she says, one size fits one. These things are so unique. But one thing that isn't unique, when there's smoke, there's reason there's smoke, and verifying what is going on. And as soon as possible, we used to kind of wait. We'd lay back, see if it's going to get whatever's going to organically take care of. There's no such thing as organics and natural in this world. Nope. And so Kristin repeatedly is the person on the team that says, no, you're going to call them. Yeah. You're going to text them. You're going to get in front of them. You're going to ask them. You're going to verify, is this good smoke? Is this bad smoke? And I think running towards that. You got to, it infers proximity. We don't lay back. We run towards it. We get close enough to know. Anything else on that before we read the room?
Yeah, I think you said it. Never assume, never speculate.
Yeah.
I tend to hear this a lot.
Yeah.
And I will ask them, well, how do you know? Did you ask them directly? Well, not exactly. Well, then why?
Yeah.
You have to have this conversation.
Yeah. Don't
make this an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Have the conversation. Trust is only built over that coaching conversation that you're available and consistent to make with them.
Yeah.
You might say you care, but they don't know you care until you demonstrate that with the conversation.
So run towards the smoke. Whatever the opposite is of don't read the room. Talk about a story. We have these famous stories, right, that help us, that have taught us over time about reading the room.
Yeah. Well, I can think of in particular one resident who served in worship who probably had natural apparel on for worship. I mean, just current, trendy, whatever.
Right.
And
jeans.
Yeah.
Trucker hat on backwards or forwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looked like a worship. Looked like a top 10 selling worship artist. I think it's what they call themselves. Okay. Yeah.
And basically, his leader, great person, well-loved, upstanding, struggled to tell him directly to maybe change his apparel. But instead he said, read the room.
Yeah.
In other words, look at who we're leading in worship. Basically, it was a little more buttoned up in apparel and dress. And all he needed to do was to sit down and say, hey, love your choice of wardrobe. This is just not the place for that. I need you to wear blank. And
spell it out.
Yes.
As Lindsay would say on our team, write it down.
Yeah.
Spell it out. Be clear. I think I've been told that more than once every week for the last 20 years. Have you spelled it out? Is it clear? It's clear to me.
Is being clear, concise, simple, direct in love. Like clarity is kindness. Brene Brown says that. So show that kindness by being clear.
It's good.
And this didn't happen for that guy. So.
Yeah. And it didn't end well.
It didn't.
For any of the parties. And this was a great church. We felt so good. We felt so good about the candidate and the church. And we learned. One thing that I say to, like, if you're launching something, we call it residency, whatever you're launching to help find and grow young leaders. If you just have someone who can just help you avoid their own mistakes of the last decade. And I think that's what churches have in Leadership Pathway, is my sense. Okay, when I think about ownership, like every attribute, maybe, when we're in control, it's either too much or not enough. When ownership goes poorly, the topic of ownership, when it goes bad, it's either too much or it's not enough. The Spirit of God is not in control in that moment. Dave is in control in that moment, and it's either too much or not. Can you break down signs? If you've got a young leader serving with you, what do you look for if you're doing too much? And what do you look for if there's not enough? Ownership.
If you're doing too much as a leader, maybe providing such high support, but not a lot of challenge, like you're stepping in, doing it with them all the time, they're not getting enough experiences. They're codependent on you. They're doubting their ability to lead, or they're mistrusting you because you're not giving them space. So they seem suddenly entitled. Like, when are you going to give me the reins? That typically is overprotection, coddling, if you will. Maybe there's an insecurity as a leader that you have, thinking, I'm not so good about having the next me because that might put me out of a job. So there's a mistrust and insecurity that's happening on both ends.
It's good.
If there's a domination, like sometimes leaders want to give so much opportunity. Maybe this was their experience. They were given the reins before they were ready. And so there's not a lot of support, but there's tremendous challenge ahead. I would say that that's probably the path that most of us jumped into. And I would guard against that because that's making it no better than what we were handed. Honestly, when I think back to the many decades, maybe hundreds of years probably, of leaders that stepped into ministry, a vast majority didn't make it because of this path.
Right.
So it's really helpful to be able to provide support, because when there's high challenge and low support, there's manipulation, fears created. There's probably a lot of failure that happens that takes people out of the game.
Yeah.
The lack of support means that they don't have someone to talk to guide them to navigate conflict management, or, learn the skill to overcome bad behaviors. Maybe they're not good at speaking in front of the huddle. What can they learn from someone that's right there beside them, evaluating, debriefing with them, and giving them a tool to practice and get better the next time? With low support, that never gets better.
That's good. So overprotecting, passivity on the other side, not running toward, not engaged.
Yes.
It goes poorly. We speak of these 7 ingredients, all of them like baking a cake. Like in the book, we talk about how you ask a leader, do you all do leadership development here? And it's as if you were asking, do you bake chocolate cake? They begin talking about one ingredient. And it speaks to this thing you just brought up about however I came through. I think that's the secret, right? We are subject to that, our own experience. It's okay. It's like we all have one. So if you were the person who got fired at 20, you think everybody should get fired. If you're the person who played athletics, everyone should play athletics. If you're the person that just jumped in, thrown in, then you think everybody should just jump in, throw in. And meanwhile, Kristin's over here saying, no, there's an ingredient list. And if you answer the question, do you do leadership development? And you start talking about one ingredient, and it's a book that we read every month together as a staff, or we do leadership development, and you start describing discipleship. We pray together. We hold each other. We do soul care. Then it's like saying, do you like baking a chocolate cake? Yes. And it comes in a bag and it's white. And if you hit it, it throws dust in. No, that's flour. That's a core ingredient to chocolate cake, but that's not the sum total. What you are here saying is that there's more to this than 1 or 2 ingredients. How then, Kristin? How are these people supposed to assess and keep track of all 7 of these things? They all have to be present. Like a good chef, like a good baker, there's an ingredient list, and then there's tasting. How is let's just say youth, kids, students, worship, guest services leader who's running with their hair on fire, how do they make sure all 7 of these things are accounted for in the right quantity at the right time? How do they do that?
Well, one of those 7 ingredients is developmental conversations. And so it has to happen weekly, minimum of 1 hour a week. I would say more than I'd say ideally. I would say minimum of 1 hour a week, but do more. So multiple touch points throughout the week. So it's about having a conversation, which involves not simply the agenda for the week,
right?
Although you do need to have those. Those are more like high top table, 10-minute connections, Monday, Thursday, saying, are you good?
The president's following you around anyway, for the most part. If it's going well, they're on your hip.
If it's going well.
Because you're
there
saying
are many times I run up against it's not that.
We're sitting down and we're having there's a plan. I had good coaches in a previous life before I met you. I was a high school basketball star at a high school with fewer than a couple hundred kids, but let's not mention that part. I had good coaches and bad coaches, and good coaches showed up with a clipboard, had some notes, had a plan for the next 2 hours together. I had a bad coach who had no plan. He prayed a lot. It was a Christian high school, prayed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And good coaches come into these things having thought about it themselves.
That's right. Yeah.
That's my sense.
Yeah. When you own something, you
Yes.
feel it deeply and you act upon it.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
don't think
yours.
I've ever owned something that I know someone's not going to ask me about. I'm going to get asked about this. I'm accountable I'm accountable to this person, but someone's going to ask me, did I do this? And to me, the piece that you and your coaching team bring to these people, they know you're going to ask next month. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm the first one that says to Kristin all the time, oh, just cancel tomorrow. Let's go out of town. Let's go to the coast. Let's do something fun. She's like, nope, I can't cancel these because if I cancel them, it'll take weeks to get them rescheduled. I'm like, but you've met with this person 17 straight months. So ownership at a deep, deep core level. Mm-hmm. You embody that more than anybody I've ever been around.
Oh, well, thank you. But it's because of the people I get to work with. It's like every week, every month can bring on new challenges, and good and bad. And if you miss a few days, miss a week, something could go off the rails, or be a great thing to celebrate that I've got to miss out on. And so, so it goes both ways. But it's definitely, it's full investment. And, it's one of those things that like you have to put egos aside, keep in check and submit to the Lordship of Christ by investing in this other person. I think about, I know I'm going off on a different tangent here, but I think about just the value of an individual that says, I want to do ministry, or God is directing me, the Spirit of God is calling me to this. Yeah. We know that they're not growing on trees. Yeah. We need to take someone who's saying they're open to ministry, that's going to carry out the mission long-term in the church, and not squander this talent that we want to grow and flourish. We don't want to bury, we want to invest. And so I do feel that precious gem that we have in front of us, that even in their rawness and frustrating qualities they emanate, it is worth investing in. And so that's, to me, what ownership is.
Seems to me when things go well, I mean, I'm sorry for the athletic metaphors, but it is the obsession of our time, right? Yeah. When things go well, the players get the praise, which is the way it should be. When things go poorly, who's the coach? Let's replace the coach of that team.
That's right.
In church world, I would just a convicting moment for all of us that have ever done this. We tend to think, oh, he doesn't get it. She doesn't. And that would never fly. In fact, there are moments in press conferences when the baseball manager or the basketball coach seems to imply it's the player's problem. And you want to talk about something that the social media, the legit journalism of the world jumps on in a moment, is when a coach sells out one of their players publicly in a thing. I would just, we've all done it. I've done it, maybe not you. I've done it, and other people that we work with, that creeps its head up a little bit. It's like we're 8 months in, we're 14 months into this. She doesn't get it. Ownership would bat that down. Ownership turns it back on the coach.
Yep.
What am I missing here that they're not coming around? And it does on me, and the person that coaches me on this, which would be Kristin.
Right.
It's like you've got to talk to him like whether it's the Enneagram or it's the tool. You have to talk to them like that. You can't assume this. You think they're not thinking the way you're thinking about this.
Right. Yeah.
And I roll my eyes and I want to fight that. I'm like, what's their problem?
Yeah.
That's not ownership. What's the opposite of ownership? That's abdication. Abdication. Is that a word?
It is. Yeah.
Trying to get out of it.
Yes.
Which is like calling the players out at the press conference.
It's an excuse.
It's an excuse. It's an excuse. It doesn't get it will not get the job done. You might own it and it still doesn't happen, but you end that process going, I did all I could do. I did all I could do. All right, closing. I'll give you the last word, ironically, which you know I'm not going to, even as I say that.
Of course.
Last word, anything you wanted to hit on?
Well, I mean, I think we've touched on it indirectly, but oftentimes I think the term ownership for many people that makes them shudder is that in their minds, it equates to micromanagement. And micromanagement gets a weird, weird vibe for people. And this is what holds them back from owning, I believe. And what is micromanagement? It's interference rather than, I guess maybe, I don't know if this is the right word, rather than intersection, like I'm helping you. It's not enmeshment. Micromanagement feels like enmeshment. Micromanagement. Come
up with that. What was it? It's
interference versus intersection. Yeah, I did just kind of, I don't know if that works.
With the attorney up on the third floor on that.
We'll see if that works.
Interference
versus intersection, like meeting people in the middle, because you as a different individual from the other person.
Wait. I think you've made the case. It's not just meeting them in the middle.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're meeting them and you're working together.
Because you know where the middle is defined? It's in my head. I've been doing this 15 years. You come over here. Now, I coach young leaders directly all the time. Your job is to get as close as you can get to your boss and learn how they want it done and go deliver that before you ever bring ideas, right? So we're trying on this other side to push them that way. But I think as you've said, when these things break down, it's on the coach. It's on the boss. It's rarely on the young resident. So intersection, that's where I get messed up, is what I'm calling the middle. It's probably not the middle. But you're saying, no. As the older, supposedly more wise, mature one, I have to meet them. I have to go to them. If we could get coaches, boss, supervisors, and young leaders to both own that together, they would get there.
I think so. I think there's also like we need to liberate and not stifle. Stifling is micromanagement. Liberation, I know that sounds like a big term, but that's coaching. Is this in the book?
Interference versus intersection, liberation versus.
Well, no, these are some thoughts. I actually looked up the dictionary of micromanagement, and then I'm just coming with the counter.
Dictionary.
Dictionary.com.
There you go. There is the hot take for all people trying to develop leaders. Go to the dictionary. You heard it first here, folks.
There's also, like, we talk about how working with younger leaders, and this happens to deal with some of our ideas with soft skill development, but we need to be more prescriptive in the beginning, especially, and then guiding them along to be able to spoon feed themselves. But it doesn't happen instantaneously. It's a guided process to get there, to help them think critically. Micromanagement is only giving the details and creating this lack of trust because you're not debriefing, talking through it. You're just giving them the list. There's a difference. So again, my ending thought is just, ownership is not micromanagement. We need to throw that aside and understand that ownership is care on a deep level. It's development that will not give up. It's persevering that actually helps accomplish the mission of developing the next you in ministry.
So my closing thought is, for 2,000 years, this has been going on. Paul said, do it like this, Timothy. Their unfair advantage is they walked everywhere, right? Jesus, I want to develop leaders like Jesus. Okay, well then get rid of your Apple Watch, your cell phone, and your car. and start walking. And I bet you would, I bet if you had a couple people that walked everywhere with you every day, you wouldn't need a therapist. You wouldn't need a diet or a workout app either. You would develop, what a crazy thought. Without AI, without all of the modern tools that all of us are scrambling to hang on to, we would really develop some leaders if we just freaking slowed down long enough to put it in our calendar, to honor that, to look ahead, to think about it before we have these conversations. Listen, well, let's end with parenting, where we full circle back. You start with parenting. If you put people through everything that you felt like they needed to know before they ever got pregnant, if you went all the way to how to choose a college, how to bring their own kids, how to be a good grandparent, they would never have kids, right? So we do masterclass trainings around the country. We have all this content trying to help people. And yet at the end of the day, we're saying, you have to do this. We don't have a choice. I just wouldn't do it alone. If the last 43 minutes have taught us anything, you need someone to go with you that has 10,000 hours in on how to do this. And that can confidently tell you the last resident I think I was in charge of was the resident who wore the trucker hat. And I think actually it was before that one, now that I think about it. It's been a long time, because there are smarter, better people at Leadership Pathway who've gone ahead, who've got their 10,000 hours, and who can respond in the moment. They've been there and they've done that, and they can at least help leaders avoid the potholes that they've stepped in. That's the book. Who's the Next You? It's coming. You can hit that link, get on the list. We'll make sure you know exactly where to go get that book. It's also the masterclass. You can find them on our website. It's coming. We're launching a digital version of that this fall, which could be interesting to find. And then it's the week over week coaching and the partnership. And we'd love to talk about any of it with you. Okay. So, who's the next you? The seven ingredients, chapter 3 of this book. That'll be our next 6 conversations after this one. And I'm so glad, Kristin, you were the first one, because this makes sense to me that we'd lock this in before we lock anything else in. So thanks.
Thank you. Good to be here.
See you next time.